call on Deputy Holly Cairns, who has 10 minutes.
Article 19 of the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities is one of the sections of the treaty cited most often. It calls for the equal right of all persons with disabilities to live in the community with choices equal to others and for appropriate measures to facilitate full enjoyment by persons with disabilities of this right and their full inclusion and participation in the community. These are all principles we agree with. However, as the work of the committee has made clear, this is a highly complex area and in one which we have such a long way to go. To enable people to exercise this right requires complex supports, suitable housing and interconnected physical and social facilities. The committee's report is only possible because of the individuals and groups who volunteer to share their experiences and insights with us. It's our role as public representatives to listen and to use this knowledge for better legislation and policy. I must also record my thanks to the Secretariat, who do incredible work in the background making this report possible, as well as the Chair, Deputy Michael Moynihan, and the Vice Chair, Deputy Pauline Tully. Housing stands out as the first main issue impacting independent living. The report notes several interconnected, systemic problems: the chronic shortage of social housing, high and increasing rents, a lack of universal design, inadequate housing adaptation grants, and poor support services. Inclusion Ireland explained that one of the biggest barriers faced by people with intellectual disabilities in accessing accessible social housing is the lack of availability of support services that are required for them to live in their own home. This results in people being made homeless, being kept in their childhood home despite their capacity to live independently as adults, or forced into institutional care. We know that the HSE's plan, Time to Move On from Congregated Settings, is moving much too slowly. Most pressingly is the over 1,300 people under 65 forced to live in nursing homes because the state will not support them in community settings. There is a clear consensus on the need for universal design to be integrated into building regulations to make housing livable for diverse needs and to future-proof our homes. The Irish Wheelchair Association outlined how Part M of the building regulations only requires housing to be visitable for a wheelchair, but not livable. Alison Harnett, Chief Executive of the National Federation of Voluntary Service Providers, pointed out this is not only about housing that is specifically for people with disabilities, it is about having universally designed housing that is adaptable as people's needs change. It's about having housing that is usable for young parents with buggies, for an elderly person who might have a walking mobility requirement, and that is adaptable for people with disabilities. Inclusive design and policies benefit all of society. Design must also support non-visible needs. We heard about how people with autism or autistic people should have homes that reflect their individual needs. And finally, there are other barriers rarely highlighted, such as disabled people or those with chronic conditions being denied access to housing and mortgage protection insurance, making home ownership an impossibility. Intersectionality is also important to fully appreciate this situation. The committee's meeting marking International Women's Day last year showed how disabled women are often doubly discriminated against. Maureen McGovern, disability community activist, described struggling all her life to live in a society that discriminates against me because of my impairment and my gender, be it in education, training and employment, healthcare, or in social, economic and cultural life. The UN highlights that girls and women of all ages with any form of disability are generally among the more vulnerable and marginalised of society. The National Women's Council of Ireland have noted that women with disabilities in Ireland are more likely to experience violence, with 40% of disabled female students reporting experiencing rape, compared to 27% of non-disabled students. Response to gender-based violence must appreciate this very alarming situation. Also, disabled women experience barriers to accessing health screening services, resulting in lower uptake of breast and cervical cancer screening. These can range from physical barriers to lack of proper information. The Department of Health and HSE need to have tailored approaches to these issues. The last point that I want to highlight is the significance of services for children. These services are especially important because they impact an individual's potential across their lives. Delays in assessment, lack of therapies and geographical lotteries are harmful to children's capacity to live independent lives in the future. We need to have a very honest and frank conversation about this. Only this week, we learned that over 12,500 children with suspected disabilities are waiting for an assessment of need. This figure from you, Minister Rabbitte, is 10,000 more than the HSE numbers. This is a scandalous situation. Children have the right to be seen by medical professionals and therapists in a timely manner and the right to education. The optional protocol of the UN CRPD is still not ratified and we still don't have a date. As a committee, we must redouble our efforts to push for action on this. We need consistency of services, we need fully staffed Children's Disability Network teams. We need the state to fulfil its obligations. This report isn't the end of the process, it's a catalogue of the improvements and changes that are needed. It's up to the government and the state now to make these changes, to provide these services and supports as soon as possible.